Imagine that a restaurant has been booked for a wedding reception and the big day has finally arrived. Unfortunately, not everything is going smoothly, and it seems that many expected guests have not yet arrived. So, how do we know that empty seats should be filled with guests? It's as simple as placing a small sign on each table. Each one tells us a person is not currently here, but a person should be here. In JavaScript, there are similar situations in which you need to mark the places where a value or object should exist. In this video, you'll learn about three types of empty values: the null data type, the undefined data type, and empty strings. I'll also demonstrate some of the scenarios in which you can expect to encounter these values. We'll start with the null data type. Null represents the intentional absence of any object value. It is also a return value of some built-in JavaScript methods. For example, let's say you create the variable named letters and assign it a string value of ABC. You'd like to search for the letter A in this string. You can do this by using the match method to search inside the variable. This returns an array with several pieces of information, but the most important part is that it confirms the A was found in the string. This time, let's use the same method on a different letter, the letter D. The return value of the match method should be an array, which is a kind of object in JavaScript. But since the D letter cannot be found, the array with the result can't be built. So null appears instead to indicate the absence of an object. In JavaScript, there may also be times when you are building something that hasn't been clearly defined yet, and so you can't assign a value to it. Fortunately, there is a way to store it so that you can assign it later using the undefined data type. While some data types in JavaScript can hold many possible values, others are constrained to just a few. For example, the string data type can hold a virtually infinite combination of characters, while the Boolean data type is limited to the values true or false. The undefined data type can only hold one value, undefined. You may recall seeing this in your practice code. For example, all functions return undefined by default, unless it's been decided to return a specific value instead. When you use console.log to output something like a name, you will see undefined displayed after the output. This is because console.log is a function, and you are not returning a value. Another common situation where the undefined value appears is when a variable is declared without assignment. For example, suppose I create a variable named noise, but do not assign it a value. You might recall that this is valid JavaScript, and the code will run. However, as the variable has not been assigned a value, JavaScript automatically assigns the value of undefined. We can even explore this further. For example, let's say you use console.to output the unassigned variable noise. Then, on the line below, you assign the noise variable the string value of thunder. What will happen if you then output this variable again to the console? The console will output the string thunder. This means only the instances after the declaration will take the assigned value. Even if the declaration assigns a value, any uses of the variable before the declaration will still return undefined. While it's important to understand this behavior, it's usually best practice to always assign your variables with values when you declare them. As you may have noticed, JavaScript gives you some flexibility, but you still have limitations. For example, if you try to console log a variable that hasn't been declared in your entire code, your program execution will stop. And rather than undefined, a reference error will be output. One way to think about it is that the undefined data type acts like a placeholder for a value that the JavaScript engine knows to exist. It just has not been specified. Another scenario of undefined is when you try to access an object property that doesn't exist. For example, let's say you have a game object with the property score that has a value of 1000. The property contains all lowercase words. Let's say you try to access this property, but you make a spelling mistake and spell score with a capital S. JavaScript can't find anything with this information, so it gives you the value undefined instead. Finally, let's explore the last empty value which you might be already familiar with, the empty string. This is a string without any characters inside of it, and it can be built in a few ways, such as with single quotes or double quotes with no characters in between them. In this video, you learned about the differences between null, undefined, and empty strings, as well as some of the common situations in which they appear.